Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Life by Design podcast. On this week's episode, I talk with Michelle Lentz. Michelle graduated from UCLA with a degree in English literature. And using her happy marriage of nearly 40 years as an example, she writes to inspire women to learn from her mistakes, love their husbands well, and enjoy marriage. When she's not cheering on her husband, Steve, with their six grown children and a growing troop of delightful grandchildren, she's curled up with a good book, pursuing deep conversations, or looking forward to the next wedding where she can hit the dance floor. In this week's episode, expect to learn what's required for a long term marriage, disrespecting men in relationships, shutting down, the importance of similar values, and much, much more. Enjoy the episode. Michelle Lentz, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Glad to be here, Blake.
I actually can't remember how I found your work, but as someone who is heavily invested and interested in getting relationships right, I took a lot from your page, hence the reason you're here. And I reckon there's a lot that you can offer the guys and the listeners today. So before we get started, can you give everyone a 60 to 90-second spiel of who you are and what's got you to where you are today?
Sure. Okay, so I am a woman who is looking at almost 39 years of marriage, and my husband and I can hardly believe that we're saying that. But we did get married when we were 24, and from the get-go, we were hoping to have a large family, and we had six children. So we had three boys, three girls, raised them together, went through a lot of hard times, which we never anticipated having to do, of course. We thought that since we were both college educated and ready to go and had all our ducks in a row, that things would come easy to us. And we lived in Southern California when a major earthquake hit, and my husband lost his business, and we consequently went into a free fall from there of trying to get back on our feet. So we learned a lot about marriage and parenting in the context of making it through some difficult times, which I think we all go through difficult times, to be really honest. We don't necessarily recognize it or recognize that we're going to come out of it. So now that I'm on the other side with grown children, four of whom are married and two are not, I just really love that age group and want to speak to them about why marriage is worth it, why we should aspire to it, how we can stay encouraged in the midst of it. I don't hear enough voices encouraging people that marriage is a good thing. So that's the corner that I'm taking because I love it. I really do love marriage.
And the general energy that you have would back that up, which is very impressive as someone who has been married 38 or 39 now.
Well, it'll be 39 in September, so
We'll call it 39. We'll call it 39.
It's easy to say that. I'm just keep looking at that number.
39 years, six kids. I assume in the 39 years that you've been married, you've seen society's relationship with marriage change. Why do you think at the core the narrative around marriage has changed? Take whatever path you want to take, because I'm interested in this question.
Oh, that's a big question, right? And of course, it's my opinion. Personally, what I've seen happen is that marriage has become more me focused rather than a we. And even the larger we of we're going to follow in the footsteps of what our parents and grandparents did and what our community has done and our neighborhood has done. And I feel like there's a lot of what's in it for me. And I mean, I just took for granted that marriage had a lot that was in it for me. You know, I saw my parents' marriage. They had a, a regular marriage as far as I was concerned. You know, I mean, they argued and they fought and mom cried sometimes, but they were happy and they raised four kids and they had the support of everyone in their neighborhood because people weren't getting divorced. So I think having that a camaraderie, even if you don't know each other, you know you're all in it together, um, even if it's just for the sake of the kids. And I don't see that anymore. I feel like our communities have changed in terms of being supportive. Um, and I think a lot of people feel like they're out on their own. And then as a result of the fact that their parents got a divorce because they didn't have that support, now they don't know who to go to when they need support. So I think our network has really deteriorated. And it used to be so supportive, and now I don't see that.
That's fascinating. That is so. What do you put that down to? I think even in my 40 years on this planet, and you've been around, you've pretty much been married the same time that I've been on this planet. I I I would say even between the ages of kind of 20 and 40 for me, as a observer and probably a more kind of conscious observer over the last 10 years. But I would say there's been a massive shift in the way that we do things into the me focus, which I think, and I'm sure you can see as well, has been part of the downfall of our mental well-being, the me instead of the we. Um,
Hmm.
what would support have looked like, say, across the board for the 39 years for you in terms of neighbourhood support? Is it that you can lean on, the other wives to chat? Is it that men are chatting less now, when they might have had their neighbor? Like, what does that support actually look like, and how is it different now?
Hmm. That's a large question. Um, I'm thinking even of how it gets trickled down to our children and I'm practically thinking of my neighbors, what my children brought home that they heard in the neighbor's home. And I would think to myself, why are those parents saying that in front of children? And not just children, but my children. Like maybe their kids hear that, but my kids just came home and said, Mrs. So and so just said this. To me, there was that the support would be the understanding of common practices. You didn't speak negatively about other adults in front of your children. You would teach your children to show respect to your neighbors. Um, that's just one little practical thing that I can think of that I felt supported in, and this is very old school. Okay, I should say too, you haven't shared this. I'm in America, and you're in Australia, right? Australia.
Yeah,
So I wonder, do I sound like I have a heavy accent to you?
you have a real heavy accent.
Oh my gosh. And I'm sitting here focusing on what you're saying. I love that. Okay, sorry everyone. Thanks for hanging with me and my accent. Okay, what was I going to say about being here in America with everybody? Oh, here. So I was raised to say Mr. and Mrs. to my parents' friends. And so I raised my children to say Mr. and Mrs. And I expected that if they went to someone's home, they would introduce themselves that way, and that my children would know, hey, they're the adults who are in charge. But I also saw parents who weren't doing that. They'd say, hey, I'm Lisa. Come on in. And my kids would start calling them Lisa. And honestly, that affected how they treated this woman. They kind of treated her like that she was the buddy, or I didn't see them acting like she was the mom, you know? So I think that changed the generational, just the underlying respect we had for adults, and that really required our children to be a little bit better behavior, you know? Um, I think that would be a conversation to figure out how that is related. I do think it is related though to how how we view, I mean, let's just say this, how do we view marriage? That's a very adult thing for adults who have earned it, so to speak. If you're not mature, I don't think you should be getting married. You've got to earn that place at the table with a husband or a wife by making some hard decisions and showing some self-discipline and things like that. So for our children to see that, that's part of, if the prize is making it up here as an adult, getting a job, getting married, living in a house that you bought. How do we get there? It's by aspiring to be an adult and anyway, I'm rambling on that, but I do think that in some way that's related.
I love it. There's some thoughts in there that I've never considered or even heard. One being having earned it from a marriage point of view. What do you mean by that? That's fascinating. I've never heard it spoken of like that.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, you are giving who you are as a gift to a person. And in traditional marriage, you have a father who gives away his daughter. And he has taken full responsibility for her. Now, I know that a lot of the world doesn't live that way anymore. But let's just go back 300 years. 300 years, a daughter is in her father's home until she gets married. And so her father has taken full responsibility for her. She is his treasure. And why would he entrust another man with his treasure unless that man proved himself that I will do right by her. I will treat her well. I will love her in the way that you've loved her. I will provide for her. I will consider what she wants and how to make her happy. I think every father wants that for his daughter. And there used to be that sense of, I have to answer to her father if I want to marry her. So to me, that still should be a part of marriage. I think a man should still prepare himself to get married. If he doesn't have a job, I don't think he should get married. I mean, are you acting like what does an adult? And here's the thing. If you don't have a job, are you working toward getting a job? One of the things my husband told our daughters was, I will not walk you down the aisle to a lazy man. And I loved that he said that because, we may not think that this man is the personality that we envisioned our daughter to marry, but we certainly envisioned that our daughter would marry a responsible, hardworking, respectable man. And I think all men can aspire to that and prove themselves in that area. So to me, that's part of the earning of it. And as a woman, how do I earn that? Um, I learn what it's like to not be self-centered. Well, we can say that for men and women. But to learn how to deny yourself, to do hard things. I have a whole chapter I wrote a book. It's called Hey Beginner Wife. And the first chapter is you can do hard things because part of being married and being a team is taking on challenges together, and some of those challenges are hard. Like I said, we went through that earthquake. Did we ever think that we would be in a small home where my husband lost his job? We've got 1,000 square feet. I'm pregnant with number 5, and now we don't have the finances to feed them the way we were feeding them. I had to scramble and come up with a budget. That wasn't part of our marriage plan. That was a hard thing. But I can either complain about it, whine about it, decide that I'm going to go home to mom, or I can be a big girl and figure it out and be cheerful in the midst of it so my children don't even know anything's wrong. We're having fun. This is an adventure. So I think the earning of it is grow up, be an adult, and prepare yourself to get married so it goes better for you.
I think one of the things that you said then that really gives me a lot of confidence in my partner. We're 4 years in, and we've got a 6-week-old, so we're right in the thick of it.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's awesome. Is nothing feels off limits with her, in terms of conversations that I have with her, in terms of feedback. And I don't know, I mean, you're in this space. I don't understand how you can have full confidence in your partner if they're not willing to do the work in whatever the work looks like long term. Because I look at that and go, oh, hang on, he or she isn't prepared to do the work now. What about in like 10 years' time when things get real hairy? Do you feel the same? Like, is there a level of delusion that people don't think to that level? That is one of my greatest
Hmm.
levels of confidence in my relationship because I've seen the conversations that she's prepared to have. I've seen the work that she's prepared to do. I've seen the way in which she takes on feedback. I'm like, fuck, nothing is impossible because she's open to growth, to doing the work, to healing, to feedback, etc. Whereas a lot of people,
Right.
it doesn't seem like they've got that as a foundation.
Well, it sounds to me like you've got the foundation that you're both on the same team. She's a team player, you're a team player, you are for one another. That's so critical because then you look at a challenge together and say, hey, we're in this together. How can we solve this problem? What sacrifices do we have to make? Um, I think that's exactly what's going on is the whole idea of we. One of the things I talk about since I am in the marriage minded space is the difference between getting married with the idea that this is a contract you're making with one another as opposed to we're making a covenant with one another. Now, a contract, there's a way out of a contract. If you don't meet my needs the way that I thought you were going to meet my needs, well, then I can back out of that contract. And that's where a lot of our divorce comes from. A covenant is I'm in this till death do us part. I'm committed. I'm going to do the work. I am on your team even if it gets tough. And the old-fashioned marriage vows, tell me if these resonate with you in Australia, but our old-fashioned vows are, I take you for better, for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness or in health, until death do us part. Now, is that something
We've got
that
those ones. Yeah,
you've got something like
we've
that?
got those
So
vows.
here's what I love about that. That's a commitment to walk through everything together, regardless of feelings, regardless of whether things go well or not, regardless of earthquakes, regardless of the money you have in your bank account. It's for better and for worse. And I call that a covenant. And I think that's what makes the difference. If you're in it for life, then you're going to have those conversations that your wife is willing to have because you're working on a common goal.
Okay.
So,
I love this. And I'm interested in challenging you on that. In what circumstances would that covenant be broken for you personally? Because I know you said till death do us part. I
yeah.
like a lot of that. Like when we're getting married next August, and I think we'll have our own vows. I like that.
Uh-huh.
Um, there's a part of me that, and I'm interested in workshopping this with you because it's just the kind of thought that I'm having. Um, there's a part of me that love and commitment also is the freedom to not hold someone back if that isn't our truth anymore. So, for example, for whatever reason, let's say there was domestic violence. Does that then still say, hey, we're committed to life, etc.? Like on what maybe it's on what terms does that get broken? Because I hate there's a part of me that hates the thought of holding someone. The freest expression of my love is not holding someone back from what is their truth. Now, if we took shortcuts, which I think a lot of people do in these relationships these days, that's a different story. But I am so comfortable and confident in my partner's commitment to doing the work for our relationship that I'm not worried about that part. So
Hmm.
is for you, your relationship with marriage, is there anything where you're like, okay, yes, there's a covenant and I wouldn't put up with this or not?
Right. Um, I think the line when faithfulness is broken for infidelity, if you're going to have an affair, if one of the spouses turns to someone else and breaks the marriage covenant by having an affair, I think that's grounds to break a marriage. Now, some people choose not to, and I think that's amazing. I'm not saying that you have to do that because there is forgiveness. There really is a coming back from that if both of them are willing to do that. But I think that is a moment in time where you take it serious and say, wait a minute, you've broken my faith at the core level. I mean, to wound someone in their sexual vulnerability, that's a really hard thing to come back from. So I would definitely, um, I mean, I'm kind of afraid of that. I want to protect my relationship from that. And so, because I know that that's something that could actually destroy my marriage, I'm pretty serious about not flirting with other men and being careful about how I say things or situations I put myself in. Domestic abuse, I think that's a breach of covenant.
Mm,
We don't sign, that's wrong. I mean, that's against the law. It's nothing, that should be in no relationship. And you can arrest someone
agree.
for doing that. So
Mm,
absolutely, 100%. And that includes mental abuse. I mean, there's some women who are just absolutely abused, gaslit by their husband and what he says, and women in the same direction. So, um, yeah, I do think there are grounds for divorce in those situations. But I also think that people are quick to choose divorce when there's a way around it. Um, you know, if you have a couple in your life, a wise couple that you can go to and share what's going on in your life, I think a lot of times they can help you sort through what's going on. A good counselor can help you sort through what's going on. I talk about in my book and on my Instagram page how men shut down if they're treated disrespectfully. Um, Now, I really come by that honestly because I was doing that and had no idea I was doing it. I did not understand how I was being disrespectful to my husband. And later I came to realize just criticizing his choices was disrespectful. And I thought, are you kidding me? That's disrespectful. But Blake, if he had done that to me as often as I was doing it to him, I would have been so wounded. And the thing is about your typical woman, she doesn't realize that if it went both ways, what it would feel like. We are so quick to make all the decisions. And then if you stop, and I challenge women, just think about this. What if he was criticizing every move you made in the same way you are? Well, we would be miserable. Well, why would he not be miserable? Why would he not be offended? I mean, one of the most helpful things I ever grasped was that respecting my husband meant treating him like a grown adult who was capable of doing something without my help. Now, I say that now it's embarrassing almost because, and especially to the men listening, they're like, yes, are you kidding me? Women don't naturally think that way. Um, I would say a majority of women don't. A majority of women think that men need our help to get things done. They need our reminders, they need our correction. And it dawned on me one day that I was treating my husband like I was his mom. And I thought, oh, that's bad because I had a teenage boy in the house. I mean, he was 12 or 13, and I thought there should be a difference between how I speak to my 12 and 13-year-old son and my expectations are for him, which actually I probably should say 8 and 9-year-old because 12 and 13, you should be getting to be a young man. Um, but anyway, that revelation just hit me. And one day I said something to my husband, and here's the thing. Husbands go quiet when this is happening. And so the women just think everything's fine. They don't push back. I think a lot of times the husbands are just so disheartened that things have gotten to that place in the relationship, wondering where their wife went. It's like, where was my fun-spirited, fun-loving girlfriend? And now she's this woman who's treating me this way. Does she even like me? Um, so I ask myself sometimes, Michelle, did you just sound like his mom, his mother, or his girlfriend? And I still, after 38 years of marriage, use that in my head because I can still default to correcting him. And one day he said to me, just in exasperation, because I was giving him a list of to-dos or reminders or something, and he just said, can you just trust me to get it right? And he didn't yell at me, but I could tell he was exasperated, and it honestly just pierced my heart. And I felt his frustration with him. And I thought, I don't. This is so sad. Why don't I trust him? So I had to dial it back and just think, well, I don't give him the opportunity to show me he's trustworthy anymore because I step in all the time. And I do think, and for the women listening, I do think that a lot of that we come by it honestly when we have children, because that's our whole world. We're managing children, we're correcting and training children, and then we have our husband over here, and well, he didn't do it right either, and so we just correct him because that's what we're doing with everybody. So I don't think we intend to end it, to arrive at that place, which is why I want to step in and go, hey, you might be at that place. And if you are, let's take it back a few steps and remember where you started. And why don't you try to treat him like a girlfriend again, like you used to? So I don't even know where we started, Blake, but that's where I just ended
I
up.
love that. I I would say it's similar to you. I'd be interested if you were to kind of pluck a number out where you see that sitting. But I would say the majority of women are in some way disrespecting and emasculating is the other word I would put in there, unintentionally. If you're doing it
Yeah,
intentionally, there's stronger conversations that need to be had.
right.
But the majority of women that I've worked with personally, like, holy shit, I had no idea that was disrespectful or emasculating, and they're very quick to course correct. And then you just see that
Yeah.
their blokes kind of light up and shine and really step into that role. And I noticed for me, and I don't know if this has shown up in your relationship, the times where my partner Shani is second guessing me or questioning me or just getting into that kind of energy that you spoke of is only a byproduct of me. So if I'm not
Mm.
leading or I'm not showing up, then I can hear the niggles start to come through. And for me, that's a really good opportunity of reflection of like, hey, I don't need to say anything to her. Let me step back into that over the next 24 hours, and it kind of falls away. But she is so mindful of that disrespect, that emasculation. But I would say a large percentage of women are doing it, obviously unintentionally, and when it's brought to light, they're very quick to course correct. Is that the same experience that you have?
Yes, I I have a whole chapter in my book called Honoring Your Husband, and about a page and a half of it is just explanations on what respect practically looks like, because I needed all those examples for me to really understand what it was because it had become such a habit. So absolutely, I before I wrote my book, I wrote an essay called The Respect Key. And I gave that away for free because I wanted women to read it and I wanted them to grasp what really took me a long time to grasp. And that was what respect and disrespect was. I was trying so hard to be an excellent wife that when it dawned on me that I had this huge, like, boulder in my eye that I couldn't see around. I was like, how did that get there? And how is it possible that with all my good intentions, I'm still really messing up? It was so frustrating and sad and embarrassing and humbling. Um, that chapter took me a long time to write because I wanted it to be really easy to understand. And it's a large concept. Men just really, I think men get it. They treat each other respectfully. You guys just do such a good job of letting things go, of believing the best about each other, of starting over again, giving someone the benefit of the doubt. Um, and when I actually was learning this, I heard someone speak on the whole concept. It was two men speaking, and they were talking about respect and all these things. And so I went to my husband and I said, okay, so I heard this. Um, does this feel disrespectful when, like, if someone says, whatever it was? And he said, yes. And I gave him like three examples because I honestly couldn't believe it. I thought, I just didn't believe it. So after the third example, he just said, Michelle, this is a surprise to you? Poor guy. We'd been married 14 years and he thought I knew all this, which I think is even more disheartening because if I knew it and I wasn't doing it, what was he thinking about me? Was he thinking I was doing it on purpose? Was he, that made me sad. I thought, I wish he knew I was ignorant this whole time. But if he thought I knew it, then he probably took it even more personally. So I said to him, one of the things that this speaker said about disrespect, he said, if you get in an argument with your husband and he starts to shut down and just say, we're done talking now, he's probably so upset he doesn't want to say something that he's going to regret because he's getting angry. And I thought that was fascinating to me. I thought it meant he was a poor communicator. I could do a better job than him, and I needed to lead the way and teach him how to have a conversation. And here he is walking out the door, and I thought, well, you're just a wimp. Get back in here. I can talk for another hour. Oh my gosh, it was so it was so good. I just if any woman is listening and this is like you're thinking, I have no idea what you're talking about, but I kind of get it and I want to know more. I want you to know more. It's going to transform your relationships to figure out this respect thing. So, anyway,
I would say, and again, my experience is different, I'm sure, to yours. I would say 8 out of 10 are doing it. And again, my 8 out of 10 of women would be either emasculating or disrespecting. And my guess is the majority don't realize they're doing it. And it's
yeah,
transformational when you can
yeah,
see the little ways in which you're doing it. I reckon it's wild. I really kind of in 2024 started to pull the pieces together of what I call like a real partnership, or I call it kind of like a power couple and the power struggle. And you see that in the partnership, that real level of empowerment, the real level of respect. There's no emasculation. There's a real sense of unity and partnership. And then you see all these little habits and behaviors in kind of the power struggle, of which one of them is the disrespect and the emasculation and the disempowerment, often from the men as well. Um, but they're all little things that once you're brought to light, you can start to make a real shift on it. One thing I wanted to touch on there, which I found really interesting that you said, and that was around shutting down your partner shutting down. The Gottman often talk about stonewalling as one way of which
yes,
men shut
yeah,
down. I always saw it through the lens of when I do it. So I was really mindful of what I was doing in terms of when I shut down. That's actually for me a protective mechanism of shutting my mouth, because the heightened state in which I'm in, I'm probably going to regret what I say. So it's actually me protecting my partner when I shut down in those moments, as
right.
opposed to I don't have anything to say, or I've gone blank, etc. So I'm guessing, correct me if I'm wrong, that's probably the experience that you guys were having.
Yes,
Mm,
yes, absolutely. And like I said, I thought it was a weakness in him. And when I discovered it was actually a strength, it blew my mind. And it really transformed how I saw him. I thought all these years he's been holding his tongue to protect me, and I've been letting my tongue go, and I've been hurting him. It was just, yeah, it was a big, big deal. So that's why my heart is for these young couples now who are in the midst of this, who marriage isn't fun anymore because that's how they're treating each other. And I think, no, marriage is such a good thing. Let me tell you the reasons why. So, that chapter on honoring your husband, I would say, I had one woman say, that was worth the whole book. I didn't need to read the rest. And I thought, you're like me then, because that was my moment of truth. But I just wanted to take really practical pieces of everyday wisdom and give it to these young couples and say, read this book and see if you don't see yourself in it and see how easy it is to change course. Because it's not that our other person has changed so much, it's that life happens to us. And then we develop these habits and we start to treat one another disrespectfully. Um, we, and that's the other thing. When you were talking, I remembered that what I hear women say is they'll joke about the fact that their husband is like a child. And they'll say, well, how many children do you have? Well, four if you count my husband.
mm,
And I think that's how they start to feel. And yet, he probably hasn't changed. If we could get the two of you away for a weekend without kids and not without responsibilities, you're probably going to have the same fun you had when you were dating. It's just that adulting comes with responsibilities, and we have to figure out how we can have fun together, how we can enjoy one another, how we can encourage one another in the midst of what we're doing, which is the responsibility of life. And a lot of times, the only way to get back to that lighthearted fun is to walk away from our responsibilities, and that's really not an option. So we have to find out, how can we have fun and enjoy one another and still be responsible? So, and you absolutely can.
How have you done it? Because I sit here, obviously I've paid attention to your socials, and it's kind of shined through even more in this chat for me, at least. There's a real lightness about you, which for me is inspiring as someone who's been in a 38-year marriage and 6 kids. You kind of, for me, there's a vision of what that would look like, and you are not the vision of that, because there's a real lightness about you. So
Huh.
is it, which like is my goal. I've now made it my goal to be as light as you 38 years into my marriage. Is there a motto that has carried you through the marriage? Is there, I think of someone like you, there must be a lot of emotional hygiene in terms of constantly moving through your stuff to keep yourself
Mm.
lighter. But what's been the kind of catalyst for you staying as light and free as you are through what is quite a journey?
Yeah. Well, one thing that we have, and I just to reference again my book, I have a whole chapter on this. I think it's really, really important that you marry somebody who is a real match to who you are, your faith and your values, because that's so foundational to how we treat one another, how we view the world. It influences our world view. It influences how we approach decisions on spending our money and training and raising our children. So one of the things Steve and I have is a shared faith, and we made that an intentional decision before we both got married. We both knew that that was important to us, is we just wanted to have that same faith foundation, and we do, and we still do. So that gives us a head up, a leg up, so to speak, from everyone who doesn't have that, because it's so much easier to have both all 4 feet on the same level playing field, right? So that helps. But I think the other thing is we keep a very short list of wrongs. We learned early on how important it was to apologize and to ask our spouse to forgive us. So we don't accuse each other of things, we don't bring up things that happened 3 months ago or 5 years ago. It's like once we've dealt with it and apologized, we just move on. And now we are who we are today. So we don't argue by saying, you always do this. You always. I mean, and then tell them the 5 different times they've done it, going back to even before we got married. That's not allowed in our house. And the other one is, you never do this, because now you're just putting that person in a corner. And how can you recover? So we've learned how to apologize. And um, I wasn't taught this when I was a little girl, but if, let's say, well, the first time I had to really apologize to Steve, we were just married and he got home from work. He was tired. He didn't want to talk. And of course, all I want to do is talk. So I'm disappointed because I was at home at the time, working from home. And then while I'm in the kitchen, he gets a phone call from his mother. And he has a lovely conversation with his mother. The same man that didn't want to talk to me is in the other room going through his day, giving her the backstory of 2 weeks worth of stuff, telling her a few things he hadn't even had a chance to tell me yet. And I was so irritated. So I'm in the kitchen and my irritation came out in the noise I was making. I don't think I was doing this on purpose, but I'm loading the dishwasher and I'm doing the dishes and he doesn't say anything, but when he's off the phone, he comes in and he said, Michelle, what was that about? And of course, I'm mad at him. And I said, what was what about? And he goes, you're so loud in here. He goes, it was hard for me to hear my mom. Well, I honestly didn't know I was just mad, but I wasn't trying to be loud. Well, I was still mad. I wasn't going to apologize and say, oh, I had no idea I was doing that. It was just like, okay, well, sorry. Like, what do you want me to say? That's about how I handled it. And he was so disappointed. He said, Michelle, it was like you were doing that on purpose. Like, it was kind of embarrassing talking to my mom. Well, I didn't apologize beyond that simple apology, but I couldn't let it go. Our whole night was ruined. The next day I felt terrible. And I did then I said, I tried this. I said, I'm sorry you couldn't hear when I was on the phone. And he just looked at me and said, honey, that's not an apology. And I'm thinking to myself, well, because what am I supposed to apologize for? I was so stubborn about apologizing, and I don't know when I realized it. Maybe honestly, I don't think I ever apologized for that. I don't remember a moment when I did. But if that were to happen today, I would go to him and say, I am sorry I made so much noise. I would tell him what I was sorry for. And then I would acknowledge that it was wrong. I really shouldn't have done that, honey. I know it interrupted your conversation. That was wrong. Would you forgive me for doing that? Like three parts of that whole thing. One, actually saying you're sorry. Two, acknowledging what you did was wrong because you know what it's like when someone says, yeah, I'm sorry you feel that way. And you're kind of thinking,
It's
do
not a
you even
sorry.
know you did?
Yeah.
I'm like, no, that doesn't count. You're not taking any ownership of it. So Steve and I are very intentional about how we apologize and how we let it go. And I think that's probably the lightness that you're talking about because we just have a really short list and we don't bring up stuff that happened.
I don't know if you got the answer to this, but it's something that I've actually been thinking about recently. What do you think is behind people's inability to let go? So I see this in myself and I see it in other couples. There's always one that struggles to let go. Like my partner is the definition of love and light. We could have a disagreement and 30 seconds later she's like, oh babe, come outside, there's a unicorn and there's a rainbow. Come and have a look at this. I'm like, how did you just like I understand it's a choice, but is there a trauma piece in the those that struggle to let go? Like what sits underneath that for those that struggle to just let it go?
Yeah, I think it's that they haven't known what it means to be forgiven, and that
Mm,
could be that the standard their parents held them to. Um, if you have an inner voice telling you that you are doing a terrible job, or you're not worthwhile, or you're not lovely, we have this inner dialogue inside of us of what we believe about ourselves. And so if we feel like we're not worthy and we've never been forgiven at that heart level, it's really hard to give that away from yourself.
mm, that's
Does that
so
make sense?
yeah, it does,
I mean,
and it
for
lands.
me, my husband and I are both Christians, and that's kind of, I don't know how familiar you are with that, but the core tenet of the Christian faith is forgiveness.
Mm,
So that's something we've both experienced with God and believe it. So because I can believe that, I'm still hard on myself. I still have that inner dialogue. I still remember the high standard that I had growing up for getting good grades, that kind of a thing. But I have to remind myself that doesn't define who I am and why I have worth. So
mm,
I think part of it is that they haven't experienced what it is to be forgiven, so they can let go. Um, and then allowing someone to really love them. It's very vulnerable to let someone love you if you don't feel that you're lovable,
mm,
even if you're married. Like, truth be told, I think a lot of couples get married and then they're actually a little more vulnerable and they let down a little bit more. And then these things start coming up that they remember. And now it's almost like they have more mess in their life than they did before they got married, which it sounds a little scary if you're not married, I know. But what it's supposed to be is that your marriage is a safe place now. So the inner you is feeling a little more comfortable to deal with the things that you've pushed down. Because like I could take something to my husband and he would say, I am so sorry. You went through that in junior high. Why does junior high affect our lives when we're 35 years old, you know? But when we actually have someone who loves us say, that's ridiculous. If I could go back and kick that guy's butt, I would do it for you because that was wrong. Um, and I think there's some of that healing happens in marriage too, but only if we open ourselves up and let it.
On that topic, and I'm mindful of time as well, how do you see vulnerability for men? Um, and the reason I ask this is I've been
Mm,
kind of watching this closely over probably the last 6 months. I've been really interested in it. In the landscape saying be vulnerable, be open, show your emotions, etc. And then the large majority of men through some of the polls and stuff that I've seen saying that it actually had a negative impact, whether it was used against them, whether
mhm.
their partner didn't see them in the kind of strong stoic way that they did previously. What does that healthy vulnerability look like for men where it doesn't have negative consequences, essentially, in your eyes?
Mm. That's a really important question, and I don't know that I have a short and sweet answer to it because I can think of different men, and I feel like every situation is different in
Mm,
terms of understanding your woman and whether she's a safe place. Um, Women do like their men to be strong and we like them to lead. And yet we also want to have that piece of their heart where they share with us their deepest feelings. So what is troublesome for me is you brought up the man who has had that used against him because
well,
that's
it's
so
not
I
just
know
it's not
I
just
get
the
it.
man; it's the majority of men, which is the bigger issue.
Ugh. See, I that just pierces me. I hate that
Mm.
because then you're going to shut down and not share anymore from there. And it's that vulnerable place. I understand how a man needs to have that safe place. And I think it's almost more of talking to the women. Um, Gosh, I don't know. I'm wondering if there's anything in this book. I read a book that was based on research. You mentioned Gottman earlier before. He's
Yeah.
done some really good research.
Mm.
There's a book called For Women Only, and it's by Shanti Feldhan. Her last name is Feldhan. And she did research. She asked a bunch of men a bunch of questions. And it was fascinating to me to find out what the men shared with her in terms of what their feelings were. And this isn't exactly what you asked in the question. I'm just thinking of the women out there who I just want them to realize how important it is, how that handling their husband's emotions is so important because of what a vulnerable thing it is. Um, I think the more we understand a man's inner world, the more um, careful we can be with how we speak to them. And in that book for women only, there's a whole chapter on respect, how important that is to men. Um, oh gosh, I'm drawing a blank on what the other ones are. One of them is how important it is that a woman take care of her body. And
Mm.
the men said, "No, I am not looking for a woman who is, the weight of a high school girl or, looks like she's 17. I just want to know that you care enough about me that you're going to care for your body and you care what you look like, that you're wearing clean clothes, that you take a shower, that you brush your hair, that you walk, that you don't just sit on the couch. And I think that's so telling because I think most women have been told, oh no, men look at porn, they want you to be perfect. And since you're not perfect, you're already falling below the mark. And this chapter was so clear that the men were like, no, I wish she just knew that I loved her. And I can't bring it up because she's going to think I think she's fat. And I don't think she's fat. I just want her to wear clean clothes and brush her hair. And I'm thinking of the women with the mothers right now because that's where my mind goes is when you're so
Hey,
busy, you
my
hardly do
partner's deep in
laundry,
it, as I'm sure you can understand, 6 weeks in.
right?
Deep in it. She gets it. She gets it. Do you know what's
Yeah.
just on that? Do you know what's really interesting? Because I've brought this up before, and it's obviously a very touchy subject. Women's, we'll call it health, fitness. To your point, I don't think it's necessarily about weight, but I've been called names when I brought this topic up. I don't know many blokes who don't appreciate their partner looking after themselves. And it's not, to your point, it's not about being the weight or the size that you were when you were 16, 17, 18. There's an energy and there's an aura and there's a motivation and there's a confidence that come with just looking after yourself that if a bloke's honest, he appreciates. And the ones that don't say that that's a factor, I'm questioning whether they're actually comfortable speaking the truth. Just about every
Mm,
bloke that I know, and he often has to speak behind closed doors to other blokes because it's quote unquote
yeah.
not socially acceptable to talk about it front facing. I don't know many blokes who don't appreciate their partner looking after themselves. It's a simple equation. We can kind of wrap it up how we want, but biologically, I think blokes appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that is tough for women. We're taught to be insecure from the time we're little girls, just
Mm,
because of what we see in advertising and what is beautiful. And we can tell how men respond to us when we're 13 years old, or when we finally feel pretty. I didn't feel pretty when I was 13. But you just get those messages and they have to be unlearned. Um, and so, even though I might take care of myself, I might think that's not enough because I
mm,
can look in the mirror and think, I would never be on a magazine cover. And so my husband probably is disappointed in me.
mm,
It gives the husband an opportunity to say, honey, I love you and I'm so attracted to you. And I love it when you just throw your hair, when you comb and put your hair up in a bun and whatever. I mean, just the simple things of affirming her because her inner voice is telling her she's not pretty enough. And this is such a tangent, but I know there's married women who go out with their girlfriends. Maybe they're doing a girls' night. They get all dressed up. They wear the low-cut shirts. They go to a bar, and we're talking about a table of married women. Well, why are they doing that? Is it they want to know, am I still desirable? Is somebody still going to notice me if I wasn't married? Would anybody like, these guys don't know I'm married. Can I still get a look? Um, I don't, I think that just shows our vulnerability, our insecurity. And I think husbands would do really well to just as often as they can affirm their wife, or even say, honey, what do you need from me? It must be really weird to give birth to a baby and now have your tummy be flat and have this body that you're not familiar with. I'm so sorry. I can't imagine.
mm.
Um, I think that would help. Just kind of addressing the elephant in the room, you
Yeah.
know,
Mm.
of it's really tough. And yeah, that is a tough one. It also is just, well, anyway, yeah, that's a big topic too. The whole,
The
what we look
whole,
like.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's probably better addressed by a female, I would say, than a male, just because of the
Yes.
the repercussions that any bloke
Yes.
might. Yeah, it's dangerous water. It's yeah. I mean, even to that point, I said this to Shani, my partner, last night. And it'd be interesting to see how, because you've got such a kind of warm, lighthearted nature. I actually had to kind of apologize for not really speaking to what she's been through over the last 6 or 7 weeks, because she does it with such grace and lightness that it's almost like I forgot that she's got a baby on her 24/7. So much
Yeah.
she's been through. It's almost like the strong person that never gets checked in on because they're the strong person. She's the happy, love person who I'm like, babe, sorry, like, because you're handling this so well and you're doing such an amazing job, I've not considered what you've been through, which is fucking unbelievable. And you're still going through it, and you will continue to go through it for a while. So yeah, just
Yeah.
honoring those people as well who look like they're doing well and who probably are, but they've been through a massive transformation.
Yeah. It's a great question to say, how can I show up for you
Mm,
today? What do you need from me? Um, and I still to this day will tell my husband, I just need you to encourage me. Can you
mm,
just tell me 3 things you like about me? And he every time looks at me like, oh my gosh, like I said, I'm sorry, I just need to hear it.
mm,
Um, because of I don't know why, because of, but I've just learned to ask for what I need.
mm.
And for me, I need that encouragement of saying, do you tell me why you like me? And he doesn't seem to have that same need. So I'll ask him sometimes, what do you need from me? Because I don't know if you're all confident in this. But I think that's a great relationship question. And then also to kind of take it seriously. I mean, especially the postpartum thing. That's a real
Mm.
season to walk through and figure out with one another.
Yeah, there's lots of communication going on for sure. So for those that want to find out more about you, the work you do, your new book, where's the best spot to send them?
Well, I do have a website. My book is available for sale on Amazon. And as much as I've made that available worldwide, I'm not sure which countries can and can't get it. I believe it's available in Australia. Um, but you can also check out the book is called Hey Beginner Wife. And it looks like this backwards. It's probably showing up backwards. This is my author's copy, so you wouldn't have that band on it though, but this is the one I have all marked up. Um, my website is heybeginnerwife.com, and you can access that anywhere. The links in that are all through Amazon. It's available in paperback, it's available in Kindle, and this summer it's going to be available Audible as well, so you can listen to it. And then on Instagram, for those who are on Instagram, it's Hey Beginner Wife, all one word, and that's going to be almost daily tips and practical. I really try to be practical and honest about stories and things that I've been through so other people can learn. I'm not real heady and ethereal because I just want it to land. I want someone to go, oh shoot, that's me. So yeah.
Perfect.
And
And as
I mean, I told you earlier, bookstores should be able to find my book. I just printed through another printer, and I believe um, bookstores can now order my book as well. Just look for Hey Beginner Wife by Michelle Lentz.
um, and your Instagram is brilliant. And I think, as I said a couple of times on today's chat, for me, there's an amazing energy that comes with you. 39 years married, 6 kids, and I tend to take, I don't know how you feel, I tend to take anniversaries and time with a pinch of salt, because maybe you're married for 20 years, but you hate each other or you're staying together. Whereas, really
Yeah.
impressed with just the general nature of you, the way you see men, the way you see your relationship, which wouldn't necessarily be the case for everyone who's been married for 39, 38, coming 39 years. So yeah, I really want to kind of just speak to what has been, one of the most impressive things for me today is just the aura and the nature that you've got, which speaks volumes, I think, as well.
Huh. Well, thank you. I
No worries.
appreciate that.
Michelle, good to have you on the podcast, and thanks for sharing all your wisdom.
Absolutely. Thanks for bringing me over to Australia. It's awesome.